by welcoming our chief guest, Mr. Devesh Srivastava, onto the stage. May I also ask Uttara Ved and Devashish Basu to join us? Come. It's my very pleasant duty to ask Devashish to welcome Mr. Srivastava with a bouquet of flowers. So good afternoon again and a warm welcome to all of you. Let me take a couple of minutes to tell you what today's program is all about. This is a program to launch what I think is a very important report on public liability insurance in India. We are very, very honored to have Mr. Devesh Srivastava, Chairman of General Insurance Corporation of India, with us today. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. We are also joined today by so many stalwarts from the insurance industry. I'm really happy, many activists and lawyers, because I'm going to need your support. This is important to each one of you, whatever your discipline. And unless all of us push to make change, it's not going to happen. So many people from PCGT, students, and everybody from the insurance industry, and of course, Moneylife members. Welcome and thank you for being here today. As I keep saying, this is our first program after 3.5 years of COVID. And before that, in 13 years, we had done 450. So we're meeting some of you regulars after a long time. And I think it feels good to meet face to face instead of on Zoom, right? We spent the last few months working with insurance industry experts and veterans on public liability insurance. And I'll tell you why and how it happened. So in most developed nations, you know that if you get injured in a public place, you get compensated. We've all heard the extreme story about you spill hot coffee on yourself and you can still demand a compensation. None of us in India are expecting that, okay? But we still feel that if you get injured in a public space, I think you can't be left to your devices. So our eyes opened with the case of Mr. D.S. Rangarao, who's here today. He's a senior government officer, did something as simple as going to his locker in State Bank of India. The locker, thanks to COVID, was faulty, broke, he fell down, injured himself so badly, he's walking today without a walker, but he was on a walker for months together, required multiple surgeries. So, came to Moneylife Foundation and we did the simple thing of saying, okay, where did it happen? State Bank of India, let's write to them. He followed all due processes, wrote to SBI, got rejected, escalated it, got rejected, wrote to the banking ombudsman, got rejected. Finally, I took it up with the RBI governor, and then as an exception, he got paid for the amount that he spent, zero compensation. And that's when Mr. Srirang Samant told us, just before I went to the RBI governor, in fact, that was the stick I had to say, he said, why don't you send a legal notice under public liability insurance? I didn't even know that it applies to this. And of course, lots of learning thanks to Uttara and others. That was the starting point. Those of you in the industry will say you're ignorant, public liability is not meant for this, but you know, it worked, frankly, because the threat. So the question that I asked is, do you really expect that we should file a case when something should be a matter of compensation? We also filed RTI applications and discovered to our surprise that SBI has liability insurance and they never pay it out and it never reaches the consumer. That's when, you know, thanks to Srirang and Mr. K.K. Mishra, we got together and said, we need to do something. We need to study. We need to find out. This can't be the way things work, you know. Just before that, we had another friend who just got up to greet someone in a restaurant. His leg got entangled in the table. He fell and broke his leg. The restaurant is one of our favorites. It's a good quality, high level restaurant. Wouldn't even call an ambulance or take him to the nearest hospitals, which were 3 minutes away. Okay? All they would do is get a load of ice in a napkin to put on his leg. His wife came and picked him up. And it really got us thinking that this can't go on. This is not the way things have to work. And then when we had a Zoom call and we said, what do we do? Where do we start? How do we get background? So all of them said, one person, Uttara Ved. Okay? You'd be surprised how many people came up with, you want to know about liability insurance? Get in touch with Uttara. Luckily, they introduced her to us. Uttara was very kind to say, okay, she will do the report. Her team is here. So Uttara Ved Advisory with her team has done, even if I say so myself, about a Moneylife Foundation report. They've done an excellent job, opened our eyes to so many aspects. Big learning. I'm nowhere near an expert, but big learning for us on what is possible. So this is just the first step. We want to, release this report. She has dwelled on things like the Bhopal gas tragedy and how the Public Liability Act came about, and all the number of, points of friction that actually prevent money reaching the victims. And we realize that on every aspect of this law, there's just so much more to be done. We are most grateful for people in the industry who, this report, thanks to again Uttara being in the industry, has inputs from all stakeholders, which is what makes it such a comprehensive report. And she's going to, it was also possible because we had support from Softcell Technologies Global Private Limited as a CSR initiative. Before we formally release this report, I'm going to request Uttara to give us a small jhalak of what this is about, and then we're going to request Mr. Srivastava to launch the report formally. Over to you.
Respected Chairman, friends on the dais, friends of the industry, and friends I hope to make after this talk. It has been a revelation to me. So when I was thinking of the title, it occurred to me that revolutionizing. And why does it need revolutionizing? Because, 20 years down the line, we had introduced from Tata AIG a whole liability department. Until then, there was no liability department in any of the general insurance companies. But since then, I've been so involved, I thought everybody knows liability insurance. Public liability is the basic. We do directors' officers, we do cyber. So public liability is the basic. And for me, it was a revelation. When, Sucheta, now I call her Sucheta because we are so friendly. And she said, no, Uttara, much as you think that everybody knows about this, there are businesses who don't know, who don't even know that it is their obligation. It's a duty of care towards visitors to, and they can be held liable for this breach of duty of care. From that small conversation started this whole exercise, and I was amazed. Every day was a new learning, despite the fact that for the last 20 years, we've been doing only liability insurance. So let me not take much of your time. Let us go through this. Who's moving the slides? Akshay? Yeah, here, there it is. Okay. We went right from the start, the evolution of public liability, the insurance, what happened in the country. So everything is there in the report for people who love details. Please go through it. But one thing we realize that public liability insurance will not take off until low legal awareness endemic to India is combated. At the heart of the fact, or at the root of the matter that we are trying to address, is that in India, people don't even think that they can get compensation. So low legal awareness spans across the entire gamut. The victims of industrial, and this is again after chatting with many people in the industry, we were given to understand that the victims of industrial accidents do know that there is some compensation payable, but they don't know the process, they don't know from whom it is coming, and people will tend to look at the government more than the industry to compensate them. So industrial accidents is fine, but what about victims of non-industrial accidents? The Morbi bridge collapse, the Kamla Mills restaurant fires, the school, Dabwali school incident, The Upar cinema tragedy. These guys don't even know that they can take the occupier of that place. Occupier is somebody who's the owner or who is allowed public access. He's intending to profit from their patronage of his service, of his facility. So they are not even aware that they can actually drag them to court and get them to pay compensation. The owners and occupiers also do not know that they can be held liable for this. So it is, a major challenge for all of us to get this legal awareness into people. Now, what are the reasons for such low awareness? Is it the theory of karma? Whatever happens to me has been ordained by the sins of my past birth and I cannot hold anybody responsible? Are we all so fatalistic in nature? Is there an absence of a codified law of torts in India? Is there an absence of contingency fee system? No plaintiff's bar. So in other countries, if there is a cause of action, then there is a plaintiff's bar who will even advertise, who will call you. Do you want me to take up this case for you? They may make, is that okay? They may make, money off the awards or damages that are awarded. But at least they will take your case up. So is there an absence of contingency fee system in India that's not working to the victim's favor? Is there an unwillingness to take on the long hassle of, it's a long length litigation country. You file a suit today, you never know when you're going to ever see the verdict. So what actually, but regardless of the number of reasons, the outcome is the same. The average victim of an industrial accident may get some compensation because now there's a very active NGT, the National Green Tribunal. And we have seen the last few accidents, they have been, at the forefront awarding compensation. But at the end of the day, the victim of a non-industrial, the kind of places you and I go to on a daily basis, Amri hospital fire, clinics, hospitals, malls, cinema halls, restaurants, hotels. Is there any way where these, victims who have fallen in these places or who have suffered bodily injury or property damage, the two key triggers in insurance, will they get compensation? They just don't bother. So then what is the current regulatory framework? Let's look at what is the regulatory framework in the country today. There is a Public Liability Insurance Act and there is a National Green Tribunal Act. Now, public liability insurance is a beautiful piece of social legislation. We have really, really good laws. It is the problem lies in the implementation. What does this act say? It says very clearly that all owners of units handling hazardous substances must take insurance. And that provides immediate relief. So if you even look at the compensations that are fixed in the act, that is designed to give immediate relief. But what it says is that if you set up an industry which involves hazardous materials, you better take insurance and you better be responsible if a third party suffers bodily injury or property damage. The next act is NGT 2010, and lately we have been seeing that they are quite active in giving compensation, in awarding compensation. There may be, you can always find fault with something that's working, and that's not the intention here. The fact remains that their awards may be deemed to be arbitrary. The thing that happens after an industry gets into an incident where third party bodily injury or property damage is evident or has occurred, what happens is that they will issue They will issue strictures against the owners, promoters. Their aim also, the National Green Tribunal was also set up to conserve environment and to decide on cases of relief and compensation. So what ails the effective implementation of these two acts? Even if it's immediate relief, the Public Liability Insurance Act says in 120 days, can you imagine only 120 days, which is a maximum time limit under the act. The district collector has to make a list, he has to invite applications and he has to disburse compensation. It is immediate relief, so therefore the compensation for a death case of fatality is only 25,000. Now, do not, react to this figure because it was supposed to be immediate and it was decided in 1991. So 32 years down the line, we need to revise that. But at least the framework is in place. Again, the entire act places the responsibility of implementation thereof on the district collector. Now, how many accidents have happened and have we seen that kind of an accountability from the district collectors? The NGT seems to be swinging on the other side of the pendulum. They immediately order a hefty deposit from the corporate. Bear with me because all these things are going to be very important when we come to the insurance. They will order a deposit from the corporate, issue restraining orders. The directors are not allowed to go anywhere outside the country. Maybe hefty deposits are demanded and they award damages which may seem arbitrary. But the biggest drawback, if today we were to look at the regulatory framework in the country, the biggest drawback is that they apply only to industrial accidents. There is virtually no regulatory framework for victims of commonplace accidents, all of which I have named before. Now again, we come to this conundrum. When we look at victims on one side not getting enough compensation, their pleas going unheard, they don't know where to look, whom to ask. And on the other side, business. How do we, get these absolutely different objectives to meet so that business is not crippled? Look, a businessman is also responsible. The corporate has done everything in their power and means to have proper pollution equipment, but accidents will happen. Does business also deserve to suffer? So at the end of the day, the only place which can deliver an effective solution to victims as well as corporates is insurance. So then we come to public liability insurance. Now, public liability insurance, the first few policies were introduced from 1988. Remember the background of the country. 84, Bhopal gas leak. 85, Oleum gas leak. People hurt, people suffering, legislators wondering what to do about it. And then comes out, it took us 7 years, but we did have a Public Liability Insurance Act. They also changed through judgments the responsibility of the occupier. And again, people who are interested in that much bit of law, please refer to the report because it draws out that history as to what happened in the country and how we are seeing the kind of judgments and the kind of acts that we are seeing today. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to be telling you about the types of policies and everything, but the general insurance industry has the best state-of-the-art policies. We found it, when I was chatting with Sucheta, she kept asking me, and with many others, they kept asking me, are these insurances available? Yes. Are they good? Yes. We have the best in the world in this country today. The kind of coverages, the kind of limits that India can give, I don't think the Indian insurance industry ever needs to, look at itself with remorse and say we don't have the kind of products because we have the best liability products. But the penetration of public liability insurance leaves much to be desired. Why? Let us analyze why, when beautiful products are available, there is an obvious need. Why is this insurance not popular? So reasons, let's just take a few minutes on the reasons and the outcome. Reasons may be many. Liability insurance is insurance of the intangible. What if such a thing happens? Nobody even wants to go there. That what if such a thing happen? At least this asset, you know that this is insurable. Liability is something that may not happen in future, but an annual policy. Every year you'll have to spend the premium thereof. That is one thing. Second, liability insurance is not insisted upon by banks and FIs. So every time there is an asset which is hypothecated or for which you are raising finances, the banks will insist, take an insurance for this asset. But liability insurance, nobody insists. At the end of the day, when I always appeal to people, corporates also, I always say that please try and explain to me that if your company is working well and you have a disaster, even if you don't have insurance, the banks will give you an overdraft. But has it ever happened in the history of finance that you have a bad claim against you and the bank guys tell you that sure, I will pay you your defense costs? No bank ever says that. Where is the option? The only recourse you have is public liability insurance. So, an insurance industry, that was a best revelation. We kept chatting with the insurance industry guys, and I won't name them, but they said, Uttara, liability may be your passion, but it is only 1.52% of the total direct premium income in this country. You expect me to give up something that contributes 30%, 35%, motor, health, and concentrate on something that's 1.52%? Not going to happen. So there you are. No, who has, the insurance industry has sent people abroad for training. How often have they sent anybody in the liability department? And I'm not talking of the private companies, but at least the old companies. How often have they sent anybody abroad for liability training? Not to my knowledge. So outcome is the same. The corporate India does buy liability insurance. For 20 years, we've been selling that. But only when the exposures are abroad, foreign exposures, or when they have been mandated. You can't sign an export contract unless it's mandated that you'll take general liability insurance. How many people take liability insurance to cover pure domestic exposures? So that means we haven't sold it well. So what needs to be done? A three-pronged approach. First is a legislative hardline approach. Let the PLIA, Public Liability Insurance Act, and the Green Tribunal Act apply to all businesses, not just owners of units handling hazardous substances. It has to apply to all businesses. The minute that happens, see how beautiful the PLIA was. If you impose liability, you must make it possible for corporate India to take insurance thereof. You can't impose liability on corporates. Ease of doing business, isn't that the buzzword? So the ease of doing business will suffer if you impose liabilities and do not give them the remedy of insurance. In the interim, and that was also suggested by one of our industry experts, at least the licensing protocols of restaurants, cinema halls, wherever there is public interface, wherever you are expecting a heavy footfall, please at least get them to incept a public liability insurance. At least that would cut the ice until legislative, because legislation and changing it will need parliamentary intervention, and it's a long-term process. And all the state actors, whether it is a district commissioner, whether it is a NGT executive members, everybody should be working synergistically, and they should be aware as to what the acts intend for them to do. 120 days the district collector has to settle. I often wonder when it has ever happened. A soft approach apart from the hardline approach, because we want to find solutions ASAP. So let's look at a soft approach. Press and media support. That's where I request everybody. Morbi disaster. How many people actually reported whether Oreva Group had a public liability insurance? At least ask that do they have one? Who is the insurer? When have the claims been paid? Even that much, one small paragraph at the end of your whole report will drive legal awareness into this country and into the people who are supposed to take insurance. Emphasizing public liability insurance as a good business practice, as part of corporate governance, ESG. We keep hearing of ESG, but please let it come here as well. And just like, the post-Kamla Mills, when the BMC got into action with all restaurants, every restaurant had a nice plaque at the entry. We are fire compliant. We are fire compliant. Why can't we have them also, displaying a certificate of insurance that if something happens to you on our premises, we are responsible. The minute you put something like that, the people who have an interface, the restaurant manager, the branch manager of the bank, he is not going to turn his back onto a victim who has suffered because he knows that there is an insurance to protect him. And last but not the least, what needs to be done? Improving the liability insurance experience. If we intend that the public liability insurance becomes popular, we must have a policy that responds to the needs of the corporate or of the businessman who has taken that policy. And that needs to work on both coverage as well as claims. So seamlessness between statutory and common law policies. And it's not that the insurance industry doesn't do this. Why for public liability do we have a separate act policy and a separate common law policy? For workmen's compensation, we have the same policy that meets statutory as well as common law. So why can't we do that for public liability? Including all relevant D&O covers. With every accident, now the NGT is ordering that the directors cannot leave the country. We have all these covers. Mitigation, emergency, civil fines and penalties under directors and officers liability. Why can't, it's not that the insurance industry doesn't grant the covers. They just need to pluck them out and put them in public liability as well. Be aware of what the NGT is ordering. And let us all rise within the insurance industry to meet that requirement. Covering all elements of an NGT award. Relocation expenses. Look at the NGT award of the Oil India at Bagjan blowout. 9 crores plus 2 awarded by NGT for relocation. Does our insurance cover that? No. We stick to bodily injury and property damage. We do not give relocation expenses. Where is the corporate industry going to go if we don't meet them halfway? Expenses for setting up transit and relief camps, 27 crores. We need to be looking at all this. Claim process improvements. If I don't know if people have read today's Times, Piyush Goyal has said to ECGC that please improve your claims processes, because I remember as a businessman I had a claim and I had to let go of it because I couldn't meet your documentation. We know, sitting in the industry, how many times our insureds withdraw their claims because they say, Uttara, we can't wait. There is enormous pressure on us to settle now. And the public liability policy has a very clear this, that until and unless the insurance industry approves, you are not allowed to admit liability or offer settlement. Now, there is no wish on the part of the corporate. They will say, please send your representatives when we handle this claim, because the political pressure on us is so much, we have to do it now. The public liability insurance will not pay. So how do we handle this? Processing claims on a duty to defend basis. We have 2 duties, but duty to defend is stamped. It is never really, practiced by the general insurance industry. We need to bring that now. Making the claims process insured independent. Why does the insured need to be present every time there are court cases held or something? Not necessary. So the bottom line, as I feel, is that unless Indian insurance gives Indian businessmen the policy which comes to his rescue when the insured peril operates, we will never be able to match the global standards. If we aspire to be global, then we must have the infrastructure that allows us to give the same service. So again, if we were to make just one recommendation, it would be this. Replicate the auto liability, motor vehicles liability, regulatory and insurance framework, because it encompasses everything. It is statutory. Before you put your car on the road, you must have a third-party insurance. Therefore, it widens the net of prospective customers for the insurance industry. Yeah, the insurance industry is saying it's only 1.52%. I'm never going to pay attention to it. By making it statutory, you have done that first thing. Because it is statutory and everybody has to take it, they will have the claims infrastructure. The Motor Vehicles Act has a table of compensation for every injured victim. The arbitrariness, we analyzed 2 awards. One in Gujarat, NGT awards. One in Gujarat, one in Assam, west and east of the country. And we find that for similar people, the property damage for repair of houses was more than the loss of life in Gujarat. This arbitrariness from NGT awards will go because Motor Vehicles Act has that. Motor Vehicles Act also does one thing. The minute there is a claim, minute there is an accident, the tribunal will demand the insurance policy, and after that, the owner of the motor vehicle, it becomes owner independent, the entire claim. The lawyers will handle it. The insurance company lawyers will handle it. Eventually, the victim gets, the person hurt in that accident gets his compensation. If we replicate that system, we had it because the insurance industry is very happy to, they have already set up the infrastructure for motor vehicles accidents. So they don't mind setting up another infrastructure for public liability. But we need a collective will for all of that. So I can go on and on, but I will content myself here. If anybody wants to ask any questions, I'm more than happy to take it. Can we take questions or shall we? Later. Sorry. We will, after the release.
Thank you so much, Uttara. And I think those of you who are not in the insurance industry, like you scared us, you've scared all of them also. So, this is what we felt the first time after we attended a Zoom call with the industry people. Really frightened. So I think without further ado, let's have the report launched. Before that, it's my great privilege to introduce formally our chief guest, Mr. Devesh Srivastava, Chairman of General Insurance Corporation of India. He's been involved with the insurance sector since 1987. He joined the industry directly, so knows as much as possible about general insurance. He has experience both in direct insurance as well as reinsurance. He's gained international exposure through postings at the company's London branch, where he was overseeing operations in UK, Europe, the Caribbean, as well as Brazil, Argentina, and Mexico. He was a key player in setting up GIC Re's Lloyd's Syndicate 1947 while he was in London. He's presently the chairman and managing director of General Insurance Corporation. I'm keeping it short because most of you already know all about him. So with these few words, may I request Mr. Srivastava to launch the report? I'm happy to say that Mr. Srivastava did not agree to be our chief guest today without reading the report. And we're very grateful to you for doing it. And, I know that we're going to get words of wisdom from you. So may I request you to.
Good evening, friends. And thanks very much for the introduction, ma'am. I really wouldn't know about the words of wisdom with such stalwarts that I see here. I think it's my fortune that I am here today in front of such people who I regard very highly. The report, of course, says a lot of things, a lot of passion. You could also feel it flow as Madam Uttara led us through the entire process and what all she's done and her own involvement in this report. But one thing, of course, is very clear. You do feel there are a lot of things that require to be done, maybe from the government side, from our own side, from the judiciary side. But clearly the easiest way out currently, as it appears to be, and correctly so I would say, is that insurance can play a big role in the entire process. All our thoughts go back to Bhopal, the place where it all started, and then history does record how much of work was done thereafter to get the Public Liability Act of 1991 finally take shape and emerge as one of the landmark judicial processes that we have had. And it has been good. It has held, the time has done it well. But then I personally feel that there still is a lot to be done. And maybe the time has also come for us to take a fresh look at what it was all about, how we have progressed in these last 30 years, and what is the requirement going forward. We are intending to be a $5 trillion economy, in rubbing shoulders with the top of the world and sorts. But that mindset has to change. That is the important part that we all forget in that journey. Maybe liability today is just a small part of our business, doesn't even find any mention in any balance sheet that we have. But then why do we not look at US, where a large proportion, 40-45% of the premiums, and that is about 40-50% of the premium of the globe, that comes from liability. So if that is what we are looking at, then we should also try to get into that mind frame. I mean, it's good for all of us to ape the West. We do that. And the social media, the television serials that we see, the OTT that we see on Netflix and sorts, they also get us into that mode. But we forget that for all that the West has done, there are loads of good practices that we somehow, tend to forget and brush beneath the carpet, not look into it. But that Liability Act is something that the West is very cautious about. I mean, Madam just made a passing reference to the Stella Awards, where you spill coffee on yourself and yet you get compensated. We are not litigious by nature, but that is one thing that we should keep in mind, that maybe that should be the aspirations, so that at least there is a fear of God in an establishment, that should something go wrong, God forbid, there will be a triggering of the person may demand compensation, and in the absence of a liability policy, that will have to go out from the establishment itself, which would hurt the person and his business and maybe even put him out of business. We should be looking at things like that, because that is important. Going forward, that mindset has to change. Yes, all the products that Madam spoke about, they are available. We have fine-tuned them over the years. But yes, there are unfortunately still no takers. And the real worth of a product will emerge only when you have such products going in the market. You also have claims that are coming out of those products, so that when people make a claim, you have ample data now under your belt by which you can fine-tune those products and make it more relevant to the situation that is there today. And that is important. For some reason that is not happening. Yes, it's again a fact that people do not buy insurance in this country, especially, that we are very fate oriented, that this is our kismat, this is the karma of our previous years or previous janam, as she said. Yes, we are that, but then we cannot afford to be that anymore. Going forward, we will have to look at the processes that are in tune with the rest of the world. And I feel there's nothing wrong. If the gentleman who was in State Bank and he had a fall, he jolly well should be getting his compensation. That is his due. And not only for the bodily injured sufferer, but also for the mental harassment, for all the pains that he has undergone in getting things back on track and getting his life back on track. Why not? That is what we should be aiming at, and not letting us dilute standards. That is again very important. Why do we always settle for something that is not the best? Let us aim for something that is, where we set the strength. We do not look at somebody else in the West to say that because West is having this, we should be having that as well. Why can't we give something that the others will then emulate and find that yes, this is something that India has done and has done in a very, very good manner, which is, a very equitable thing that they have done, in which the person gets his compensation, the shopkeeper or the establishment owner also pays out, the insurance company is also involved in the process, and everybody has a finger in the pie. That is what we should be aiming at. So again, thanks very much to the Moneylife Foundation for having called me here, and it's been a delight to be with all of you in this evening. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Srivastava. I hope you're going to take the lead in helping us push for this. So one of the things you would have heard Uttara say is that motor vehicles tribunal work. And I think that is something that we heard over and over again while we were working on it. And I think as you go along, so first let me tell you, this report is for the public. We have soft copies of it. Any of you who want to take a look at it, we can't give you hard copies, but the soft copy is going to be on the Moneylife Foundation website. And just WhatsApp us at the Moneylife Foundation number or email us at foundation@moneylife.in, and we will immediately send you a copy of the report so that you can look at the details. And as one of the things that you will find is that people can't, the last mile doesn't get the compensation they want, because there are lots of areas of friction which are identified by Uttara and her wonderful team in this report. So each one of you would have a point that you want to take up, maybe with the government, with regulators, to say, this concerns me and I'm going to push for it. If, a cross section of you do that, then I think we will hopefully in 2 or 3 years have something better. So we want to hear a lot more, I'm sure. What she's given you is very tantalizing. We have experts. May I request Dhananjay Date, who's been the former head of Swiss Re, to come and say a few things, because you are one of the people who has read the report.
Thank you, Suchita. Thank you, Mr. Srivastava. Thank you, Uttara. I just want to say a few words, and I'll break up my speech in, what I'm going to say in 3 parts. One is about Moneylife Foundation itself. You'll see on the screen it says the right thing to do. That, I think, is really the motto of Moneylife, which is run by Sucheta and Devashish. Devashish is a qualified chartered accountant. Now, what is the right thing to do? You know, it's very easy to try and help people who are successful, who are above you. It's a bit more difficult to help people who are below you, who are at the bottom of the pile. And what Moneylife strives to do is to give those people a voice and guidance. So, a big thank you to Moneylife for doing what essentially is always an uphill task and a thankless task, because you're always going against the wind, you're going against people in authority, you're showing them that, look, what you're doing is not right, what you should be doing the right thing to do, but you're not doing it. So it's a pretty tough task, but they've been doing it single-handedly, so that's why a big thank you to you. A big thank you to Devesh Srivastava, who very kindly accepted the invitation in spite of his busy schedule to come and release this report and share his thoughts with us. And of course to Uttara, who hasn't changed in the 20 years that I've seen her. So I told her, look, I don't know what you earn per year from Uttara with advisory services. Just write a book, The Secret of Looking Young, and you probably make 20 times the money. But anyway, that report is a very well-written report. It's concise. There's no waffling. There's no hot air. So, thank you for that. Now, regarding public liability insurance. Now, just think about it. In India, we have traditionally not been a litigious society. In India, traditionally, we basically don't like confrontation. So, eyeball to eyeball discussion is something we as Indians feel a little, we don't naturally take to it. Okay? The white Anglo-Saxons, when they want to get a message across, and they're basically much more aggressive than we are, it is eyeball to eyeball. So, the London market insurance brokers will tell you that, you know, this discussion is going nowhere. So, they actually glare at each other that, okay, now the gloves are off and it's going to be a bare knuckle fight. India, we don't like going to litigation. As was alluded to, first of all, our courts take far longer time to reach a decision, etc. Now think of those people, the dependents of those who either were maimed, injured, or lost their lives in, let's say, the examples given, the Upar cinema hall tragedy in Delhi, or in Mumbai, that rooftop restaurant in Kamla Mills where youngsters used to go because they could smoke the shisha or whatever, and there was a gas cylinder close to a source of fire. There was an explosion, fire, people lost their lives. Now you could say that, okay, people who go to a cinema hall are above a certain economic strata. People who go to that restaurant, likewise. What about the people who were crossing a railway overbridge? There was a stampede, and I think, again, that thing collapsed, people died. What is the man in the street to do to get what is his or her legitimate due. They don't know how to go about it. They don't even know that they have rights. So if I'm, let's say, a man selling vegetables on the thela, is my contribution any less than a person who's, say, the chairman of a corporation? No, it's not. I'm, by the dint of my own hard work, earning money to provide for my family, which is what everybody who works does. But if something were to happen to me as the breadwinner, to whom do my, let's say, wife or children who are dependent go to? They're not even aware that they have certain rights. And this is where the public liability insurance part, I think, plays a huge role. During the course of her introduction, Uttara mentioned that, look, that can be a three-pronged approach. Let's start with the regulator, the IRDA. The name itself is an acronym for Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority. Okay. Now, apart from spreading the message of or the importance of public liability insurance, the IRDA will actually achieve the D part in its name. Why? Because people at least will become aware that, look, if I'm traveling on a railway train meets with an accident, the railways have clearly failed in their duty of care towards me as a passenger. Simple. There's not rocket science. Similarly, if I go to a mall, the mall has been licensed by the municipal authorities, blah, 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 but the floors were washed, there's no warning sign, slippery, I slip, I break my leg. Somebody has not taken due care. Now, so first thing is, if the regulator were to recommend to the Ministry of Finance, which basically is responsible for insurance, and says, look, maybe we need to tighten the nuts and bolts on the Public Liability Act. So Uttara referred to the fact that, okay, 25,000 is the immediate compensation to be paid within 120 days. Clearly, what was viable, say 30 years ago, is not viable today. So simple things like just with inflation, increase the numbers. Now, in our country, we've always had, it used to be many of the bright ones would go sit for the UPSC exams and qualify for the Foreign Service or the Indian Administrative Service or the Indian Police Service and all those central services. I didn't know that, as Uttara has pointed out, that in the Public Liability Act, it says that, look, the collector of a particular district or tehsil or whatever it is responsible for immediately getting information when something goes wrong or there's an accident, tabulating who has been injured, to what extent, whether there's a fatality, and is empowered by the Act to actually disburse this compensation. I wasn't aware. Were you, Mr. Srivastava? I wasn't. None of us are aware. So obviously the education has to start from us as well. But in the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy in Mussoorie, where all these, the gazetted officers, central services people are trained, this should be one of the subjects in the syllabus. That you, Mr. Magistrate or Deputy Collector, when you go on your first posting in the district, please be aware that this is one of your responsibilities and duties. Now, if that were to happen, it would make a huge difference. I'm sure if I walked into one of the collector's office in, let's say Latur district and asked the collector, are you aware that you have to do this? I'm 100% sure he'd be as blank as anyone else. So this three-pronged attack that you spoke about actually, I think, is very relevant. And a little nudge from the IRDA will definitely have the, I would say, positive impact on the ministry, especially the department which deals with insurance. And if they go to the finance minister or the finance secretary and say, look, this is one of the needs of the day, it's in the interest of the country to do this, I think it will go a long way for the parliamentarians, because there is no win, there is no, in fact, it's a win-win situation. The man in the street is more aware, there is compensation available for him, penetration of insurance will increase hugely, insurers will devise products, if there are any, not addressing the needs of the market, and the public will have insurance to buy. People who are injured will get compensation, they will know how to do it. So that, thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Date. He's been a generous supporter and donor long before we thought about public liability and insurance. And thank you for the kind words about Moneylife. Two people that we've leaned on all the time through the fight for Mr. Rangarao have been Srirang Samant, who's headed Lloyds in India, and Mr. K.K. Mishra, who's headed Tata AIG Insurance, and he's been Uttara's mentor also. And their guidance has been important on a lot of things. And I think, Dhananjay, it's very good that you mentioned about the district collectors, because in the Zoom calls that Uttara organized, everyone kept coming up with this simple fact that the district collector doesn't even know anything about liability, forget about doing anything in 120 days. And as most of you will agree, litigation is almost impossible for the ordinary person in India. It's too expensive, it's too long. Compensation is never up to the mark, and that's one of the reasons why we came up with this idea that motor vehicles kind of thing would work. So may I request Mr. Mishra and Srirang Samant to say a few words. First, Mr. Samant. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and the very respected professional on the dais. Since Suchita has warned me that I shouldn't waste time in showering accolades on her, I'll refrain from doing that, but I just can't help thanking both Suchita and Debashish for starting this yeoman's work. It's really the need of the hour. And obviously, they have been very ably supported by Uttara in that. At the risk of falling foul of Sucheta, I should say that once I asked her why is she taking all these thankless tasks in hand, and she said that dimag mein kida hai, I have a bug in my mind. I hope that kind of bug, remains active. Keep doing this. Uttara has done a great job. Really, the speech has been very passionate. A lot of new dimensions have come out. And I think Mr. Date has pointed to a very, very important provisions which none of us were aware of. Thank you for that. Actually, I'd like to, in very few words, I'd like to move it to a slightly different direction. The legal part of it, the insurance part of it, the regulatory part of it's all fine. I would just like to raise one point, which is that nobody is going to market a product for which there is no demand. So, Uttara very rightly said that all sorts of, very, very well worded, very comprehensive insurance products are available for liability insurance in this country. But if nobody is going to buy them, it's going to remain 1.25%. Why do insurers push health insurance and auto insurance, which together form 80 or 90% of the premium composition? Because there is demand for it. Motor insurance obviously is compulsory. Health insurance, because government had ceded the healthcare space to the private sector. Now, if you think a little bit more about it, and I think here we have the representatives both of the industry and the public, and I would urge all of you, and give it a little more publicity and create more awareness, that insurance companies will only sell this product if there is a demand from the buyers. And where is that demand going to come from? Not by making large legislative pieces in respect of liability insurance. Quite a few legislations already exist. What happens is, and I'm sure my lawyer friends in the audience will probably raise their eyebrows at this, is that we should create awareness amongst the people that the moment you have a mishap, sue somebody. Like somebody threatened to sue State Bank of India, sue the person. That will create a demand for the product. Yes, our legal system is already very inefficient. Our courts are clogged. Nobody likes to go to courts because it takes time, but slowly that will have impact. I'll just give you one example from my past lives. In most of the international insurance field, or in most of the countries in the world, municipal bodies buy public liability insurance. And one of the countries where I had the opportunity to work, the local municipalities simply could not buy public liability insurance because the insurance industry was not willing to take the exposure. For the simple reason, just extrapolate the situation that happens, that exists in our country. You can't walk on the pavement, if they exist at all, in any city in our country without looking down. Instead of looking straight forward, you have to keep looking down. If there is a loose stone, or if there is a ditch, or there is a telephone trench, or there is this or that. I'm sure we have seen examples of people falling over, breaking legs. And even a smaller mishap than that, in most of the developed world, the municipality will get sued for millions of dollars or pounds or whatever be the condition. I think we have to think back from that. It's not going to happen overnight, but the moment we start educating people that anybody which has the responsibility to maintain a place which has public access, be it a municipal pavement or a road or a restaurant or a cafeteria, anywhere, if he doesn't do it, they should be sued. And once they do that, whether there is a law enforced or not, they will start buying insurance. And once they start buying insurance industry will offer that products. It may take 10 years, it may take a generation to happen. The fallout of this kind of awareness will be that we will have a safer environment for all of us to walk in the streets, to go to a restaurant, to go to a cinema hall, to go to any other public places. With that, I'd like to thank you for this. This is a very, very big movement. It has to start somewhere, and I hope those amongst us in the audience here, so if you can start launching a public awareness campaign about your right, our right, for a safe and secure environment, public liability will take off. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samant. The really important point about going to court, I think in this context, I should give you another para from Uttara's report, which is all of us know about the McDonald's case, where we talked about this lady who spilled coffee on herself. What surprised me, and we forget what really went into it. She asked only for $800. She hadn't asked for the big compensation that she got from the court. She did not even go to court first. She needed skin grafting and hospitalization. So she asked for $800. McDonald's told her, go to hell. She then went to court and got the compensation. We don't remember that. We don't remember that they could have got away with paying $800 and they forced her to fight, and then she got this big mega jackpot compensation. So all of us, and I have been saying this also, oh, you spill coffee on yourself and you get compensation in America. It wasn't simple. So I think we need to take what Mr. Samant said seriously. Some of us have to go to court. It is expensive. It takes too long, but I think, we have to start somewhere. May I now request Mr. K.K. Mishra to say a few words?
Sure. KK, I will. we were absolutely forbidden to touch the municipal risk. We couldn't give cover to the municipality of any country because they could be held liable, and this is for the general audience. For how many things can the municipality be held liable? If there is a pothole on the road and a vehicle skids, a two-wheeler skids, and we have seen deaths happening from that. That is a problem. That is the liability of the municipality. If there is a bigger pothole and a car were to sort of break down, and there have been cases where spinal injuries of people sitting in the motor vehicles have been claimed from the municipality. We were told as insurers not to ever give covers to municipality. And when I talk about that, even in coffee table conversations, people say, you mean to say that all this is payable? So I completely, it just reminded me of those days. Sorry, the stage is all yours.
Good evening, respected Devesh, Devashish, Sucheta, and Moneylife Foundation. Sucheta is her passion and enthusiasm tried with all this public liability. And Uttara is for 20 years.
Only liability.
No, must be 30 years. You are doing with the liability. So I am retired in 2015. I'm not with the market, but I'm also helped to all the Moneylife Foundation. I just wanted to say that. See, the act was on 1991. So the look at the fourth section. Owner is only handling with hazardous. So just change that. Just revise that.
And
That the owner. Any public liability or assembly or mall or hotel, they just check delete that hazardous substance. That's all.
That's all.
I agree with, you can start with auto liability also, but only revise with liabilities, only one change that will improve that owner or any company will look at that. So I remember, Uttara also remember that 2006-07. We paid the claim also at that time. So I say insurance is available. Insurance is available. Half of the rural don't understand this liability also, motor liability. But see, Uttara and Sucheta is improved that understanding. So thank you very much. You are very passionate. I'll look at it and say, whatever can I help you, I'll help you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I wish one small change can happen and transform things. If we can get it, we see some enlightened leadership. Nothing could be more wonderful than that. I want to take advantage of so many insurance stalwarts being in the audience here today. May I request, instead of just an open discussion, I'm sure you've heard her, and you also know the point that we make that, all of us Indians like to live Bhagwan Bharose. There's a big calamity, Morbi happens, some minister or some MLA and MP will stand and say 5 lakh, 2 lakh compensation. Why should it be the state largest given out of the exchequer rather than being your right and coming through a liability insurance? This is a basic that, we want people to understand, that it's about your right. It's not about the sarkar being my baap and giving you something out of charity. If any of you would like to come here and add to the discussion today or make some points, may I invite anyone? Come. I'm asking Mr. Jamshed Mistry, well-known advocate, to come and speak.
I'm here basically only to make a simple suggestion, and I think we'd love to read the report. I'm the amicus in the famous potholes matter. And reports such as these can be easily, as amicus I can present it to the court saying that this is gone into, and tomorrow, in fact, so many people who have lost their lives because of the pothole deaths, we can immediately say that, and based on this, insurance can be brought in. Another instance was when public charitable hospitals. I remember going to court again as amicus. We said to keep 10% of the beds free doesn't make any sense. Let's hand it over to an insurance company who can actually, the hospitals can be taken care of, and so can the patients. And then, of course, they came and they said now 2% of your monthly income is set aside for that. So insurance definitely plays a very, very important aspect. And I think one thing that my friends in insurance keep talking about, you said talked about demand. They said larger the base, the cheaper the insurance. That's how it is. But to create that particular demand, I think what you need to do. I mean, somebody said, sue. I mean, you can. Things will change. We've seen in the next 4 or 5 years the processes from the lower court to the higher court. Everything is going to be electronic. I think that you will see a great change there. But I think the important thing is the awareness of the man on the street. I mean, and the litigant, and that's where Moneylife and all of us can play a very, very important role. This should go right down not only to the district collector, but every school child should know about this. That God forbid something happens, I can get money. So, few suggestions.
Thank you so much. I must mention here that Jamshed Mistry is one of the 2 people, along with Indira Jaisingh, who fought for legal transcriptions of court hearings. So today we have that transparency in courts thanks to him. And the point he always made was that a lot of things are said while hearings happen, which are never there in the judgment. And they just seem to vanish into thin air. So thanks to this big change. So he's been a fighter and a change maker. And he, I think, has been an amicus in a large number of cases. And frankly, Jamshed, never occurred to me that people like you can actually fast forward us quite a bit by recommending this as an amicus. So I hope that really happens. Thank you so much for being here. Anyone else wants to add? Come here.
Good evening, Honorable Sir. Good evening, friends. Myself, Swati Sinha, practicing in the field of insurance. I am having experience since 2006. I am working for this industry. And with this little bit knowledge, just I wanted to share you the practical aspect of this liability with respect to the motor vehicle accident. There are 2 types of crowds are there. Hit and run cases are going to be, so no, vehicles are not identified. But the police and the entire system will create the scene that no, this vehicle has been manipulated now. Because I am talking about the motor vehicles files experience, practical experience I am talking about. The second type of the crowd is even the vehicle is identified. people will settle on the road. Don't file an FIR. And this is the hard truth. Even the accidents are there. If you have the, the victim is very poor, downtrodden, such type of, so 10-20,000 de do, or don't file an FIR. So this is the general practice. So one sir was talking about that you definitely need to be sued. So the first, target is the people should be very bold in this regard. That how we will face the situation. Okay, and the system of the police system, people are very much, in fear. They will call for investigation. कैसे हुआ? तुमने देखा? गाड़ी में H लगा है. H को ऐसे घुमा के लिखा है. 8 लिखा था. So the situation will be like that. ना people will be fear. कि अरे मैं रोज थाने क्यों दौड़ूं? This is the practical approach. What I feel. So this scene is creating the pressure on the common people. मैंने कुछ देखा ही नहीं. This is the practical approach. So it will definitely change, and but it will take some time. That is true. Thank you.
Very interesting point, but we need to reach there first. Let's have a motor insurance like system, and then we have new battles that she's pointing out. Any questions anyone has? Shall I bring a mic to you? Would you like to come here? Mr. Munshi has been fighting radiation. So a very well-known activist and runs an NGO which is fighting about cell tower radiation.
Good evening. Deveshji, Uttaraji, Devashish and Sucheta, plus friends in the audience. We have been fighting for the last 11 years against EMF radiation from the mobile towers.
Yes.
It has caused harm to many deaths, many sicknesses. But I don't know whether this is covered by your public liability insurance. According to me, not, because my friends Swiss Re and Lloyds of London do not cover any sicknesses caused from EMF radiation. Asuron, ASURON in USA also do not cover for Verizon and AT&T this diseases caused from EMF radiation. We are soon going to from the 2G, 3G, 4G to 5G, and 5G is 10 times more radiation than 4G. I was just reading Adani's press clipping where he is on 26 gigahertz, which is 26,000 megahertz. And what is 4G? 4G is only 2,300 megahertz. I don't want to give a lecture on radiation, but I just want to caution you what is going to happen in the future. And I don't know what JIC is going to do or take action. We have written to JIC and to NGT to classify EMF radiation as a air pollutant, but we are not getting any feedback from the industry. Once it is an air pollutant, there will be various repercussions. Just like you're saying, you will sue. If you start suing, there will be a wide coverage. Similarly, if you classify and help us to classify EMF radiation as an air pollutant, we will have a much better future for our citizens of India. Thank you.
Very good evening to all of you. For those of you who I've not interacted with, my name is Vignesh Chandrasekhar. I'm a second generation risk and insurance professional. Really looking forward to reading the report, ma'am. I'm sure it will help enrich my knowledge about public liability insurance. I just wanted to say a few words looking towards the future. I think India as a country has a very young demographic, and we need to start looking at how we can ensure that awareness about public liability and insurance reaches to the youth who are there. And I think you guys would have seen that the attention span and maybe understanding is not as good as it was, let's say, a decade ago. Everything runs on bite-sized information, whether it's WhatsApp forwards, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, and so on. So I think we need to look at how we can simplify the product. I think you all will also agree that if we understand something, it's very easy for us to understand. We'll be more interested in it. We would do some more research on it to understand what it is. So I think, like K.K. Mishra ji spoke about the wordings. You can have one small, change in the wording. Similarly, if we can look at maybe simplifying the language that is being used, so that people who are not, let's say, from the legal profession or even from the insurance profession will be able to understand what is covered, what is excluded, so that they are very clear that, okay, if I want to, let's say, file a suit or if I want to file a claim, what is it that I might get? What is the compensation that is due to me? And what is the best way that I can go about doing it? So I think one way in which we can help increase penetration and awareness of people of public liability, or even insurance in general is see if we can simplify the product and the wordings, and that will automatically, I think, start creating awareness in the youth. And through the use of social media, we can really reach out to the tier 2, tier 3 cities as well, where you can create that awareness and help improve the penetration. Right? Thank you.
So we've got a very interesting perspective from a second generation person. We're going to take you very seriously. I think the point that you made, we have to read the report first. And we are very happy at Moneylife to organize Zoom calls, because there'll be people all over the country who are reading it to understand and interact. Uttara has already very kindly said she will explain. I think we need to reach out to Masuri. Maybe Dhananjay Date is going to help us there, so that the district collectors, before they are minted out of that school, understand a bit about liability. That is important. But we would be happy to organize calls if you write to us for specific groups and look at people who will be able to explain terms after you've read the report. Nishit Kumar, he's also a well-known NGO. Want to come here? Okay. I'll give you a mic.
NGO. And I just want to make the point. You mentioned about district collectors. In Orissa, in a school where a midday meal was being cooked, a child fell inside a cauldron of boiling dal and died. In Chennai, in Tamil Nadu, in a government school, midday meal was being cooked under a chatai, and the chatai caught fire. 66 children died. 66 children. Not 1 rupee was paid as compensation. So, I mean, the sooner we have conversations with the district collector and from the civil society organizations, we're very happy to take that message forward.
Okay.
Thank you so much. In fact, I'm going to come to you. We're going to wind up giving both our chief guest and Uttara the last word. So if you have any thoughts.
Okay, just one point, which is what I kept emphasizing. The district collector cannot even help when it comes to schools, because his authority only extends to industrial accidents. So it's in this particular case, when it comes to schools, he may want to do, but he's not equipped under the Act. Therefore, the entire presentation was that all places where common man, or where there is a footfall, or where the common man needs to frequent those places, whether they are schools, hospitals, everything must be brought under the purview, so that the district collector is able to help. You get my point? With that one thing, we sort of, it's one stone killing so many birds. Because if it becomes compulsory, the insurance industry will have to sit up and take notice. If it becomes compulsory, they will have to set up claims infrastructure where it is owner independent. You don't even want the school principal or the trustee to be hanged. You get my point? Because such a thing happened. At the same time, you want the victims or their parents to get their compensation. So with this one stroke of, like he says, legislative, if we can extend the purview of both the NGT as well as the PLIA, or even the PLIA to start with, it will really make things good. But before that, we need to change the scale of compensation, which is frozen as we speak 32 years back. What was in 1991? Again, even as I speak, we know that ministry and the parliament is looking at it, because there are cabinet notes, it's there in the report, about what is it that they plan to change about the Public Liability Insurance Act. My only response will be that everywhere the amendments are on ease of doing business. Ease of doing business is fine, but first let's get victims their fair share of compensation. That needs to change. The scale of compensation needs to change. Currently, the prescription is only for 5 crores. And look at the kind of disasters we have seen. Is 5 crores per accident adequate? It's not adequate because our compensation is 25,000 per death. So everything has to change in tandem. But it is something that, I have also now got painted with Sucheta's passion for, bringing change. So I keep telling her that whenever you want me to help, but these are the changes we desperately need in the country today.
I just want to share with the audience that in the United States, the courts actually follow a principle called punitive damages.
Yes, but we don't do that.
So I can see many heads nodding, including Mr. Munshi. For those of you who don't know what punitive damages is, let me give you an example. Let's say I have an insurance policy. I've insured my house for 100 against fire, explosion, earthquake. There's an explosion, my house falls down. What do? I'll go to the insurance company, I'll say, here's my policy. Sum insured is 100, loss is 100. Please give me my claim. Now, I'm just making a simple example so that you understand the concept. The insurance company says, this fellow is a doodwala, they don't bother about me. I go there again, I say, look, here's my policy. Of course, I don't say the terms insured peril, I'll say policy hai, 100 rupees ka, aap mera claim do. Again, this goes on. If the matter is taken to court, and in the United States, everybody, they are litigious, it will go to court. Now comes the punitive damages. So the courts will look at it. So they'll say, right, this insurance company should have paid this claim, let's say within 6 months, reasonable period. They've kept this poor guy hanging for 1.5 years. So they'll say, right, insurance company, you please pay this guy 100. And by the way, you pay him another 150. So your contractual liability is exceeded hugely because the courts take a very dim view of a powerful corporation trying to bully a small person. We don't have this in India, but I thought I'll just share this with you. This has a huge impact. So people won't or cannot unnecessarily string a person with a low income along because there's a huge penalty to be paid. And the courts are extremely harsh with punitive damages in the US.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, Sucheta, just 1 minute.
We close it.
Just 1 second.
Because I agree with the point. Indian courts do not give punitive damages.
I'm talking about a topic which has not been covered, which is cyber crime and banks, which is very recently I have had 2 cases of my friends who are NRIs
and the money vanished, 1 crore and 2 crores out. But because of their contacts at the top, they got the money without the bank getting the money back. I don't know whether they are insured, the banks are insured with the GIC or not. I don't know.
Mr. Munshi, we write about this quite a bit. In fact, Yogesh writes a weekly column called Fraud Alert, and the RBI does allow banks to pay out. They are also supposed to pay out fast, and they are supposed to be covered. So, but it's an important topic. We will take it up separately because it's a whole topic on its own. Would you like to say a few words?
Just to say that GIC has been there. I mean, even after Bhopal, GIC did step in. Even today, the situation remains much the same. We are happy to contribute in any way which we can and take things forward. If that makes a difference, yes. Because I feel we do deserve much better than what we are getting today. And the time has come. So let's take it forward. Happy to be part of the journey.
Thank you so much, Mr. Srivastava. It's now my really pleasant duty to bring the proceedings to an end, but may I request Advocate Jamshed Mistry to present a small memento to Mr. Srivastava on our behalf. I'm now going to request Devashish to deliver the vote of thanks.
Well, with this, we come to an end to this event today, the launch of and the discussion program on public liability insurance. Allow me to thank our chief guest, Mr. Devesh Srivastava, once again for honoring us with his presence and for sharing his thoughts with us. We are, of course, all here because of Uttara Ved and her fabulous team who gave us such a comprehensive, detailed, insightful, and actionable report. So, a big thanks to them. We are aware that this report and the discussion that followed is just the beginning. The hard work of advocacy with policymakers to persuade them to make a series of changes outlined by our recommendations, as well as that have been contributed by various speakers, by Mr. Srivastava and all the others, that lies ahead. And that is the difficult part, and that needs all your support. And we, of course, we will focus on that from now on. A special thanks to Softcell Technologies for supporting the project. I thank Akshay Nayak of Moneylife Foundation, who has coordinated both the report and today's program, and of course the rest of the Moneylife team. Finally, thanks to you, our Moneylife Foundation members, friends and activists for your presence and support. You all have a very good evening. Thank you.